When 19-year-old Trinity Musk stood outside a Los Angeles courthouse, legally changing her name to Wilson, the world gasped. The daughter of one of the most famous men on Earth had just publicly severed ties with her father. But what drove a daughter to such a dramatic decision? The answer wasn't what anyone expected. The October morning air felt heavy as Trinity Musk stepped out of the Los Angeles County Courthouse. Her heart pounded in her chest. In her hands, she held a folder of papers that would change everything. The documents were still warm from the printer. Her new name was printed right there in black and white. Trinity Wilson. She had done it. At 19 years old, she had legally changed her name. She wasn't Elon Musk's daughter anymore. Not officially. News. Cameras surrounded her. Reporters pushed forward, shoving microphones in her face. Everyone wanted to know why. Why would the daughter of one of the world's most famous men throw away his name? Trinity. Over here, a reporter shouted. Why did you change your name? Her hands trembled as she looked at the crowd. This was the moment she had been dreading. She took a deep breath. I want nothing to do with my dad, she said. Her voice was steady, even though tears filled her eyes. This isn't about fame or money. This is about being true to who I am. The words felt strange coming out of her mouth. She had practiced them for weeks, but saying them out loud made everything real. When did you last speak to your father? Another reporter called out. Trinity looked down at her feet. I haven't talked to him in 9 months. The crowd gasped. 9 months without talking to her dad? That seemed impossible for a family as close as the Musks appeared to be on social media. What about your inheritance? Someone shouted from the back. I don't want it, Trinity replied. I don't want anything from him. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She knew without looking that it was probably more news alerts. The story was already spreading like wildfire across the internet. As she pushed through the crowd toward her car, Trinity thought about how different this moment was from what she had imagined as a little girl. Back then, she had dreamed of working alongside her father, building rockets and cars that would change the world. Now, she just wanted to disappear. Inside her old Honda Civic, Trinity sat for a moment before starting the engine. The courthouse was behind her, but the real challenge lay ahead. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text messages flooded in from numbers she didn't recognize. Her social media accounts, which she had tried to keep private, were exploding with notifications. As she drove home to her grandmother's house, Trinity thought about the last time she had seen her father. It was at a family dinner almost a year ago. He had arrived late, as always, and spent the entire meal on his phone. When she tried to tell him about getting into MIT, he had interrupted her with a story about some new rocket design. That night, she had made a decision. If her father couldn't make time for her, she would stop making excuses for him. She would stop waiting for him to show up. She would stop being his daughter. The drive home took an hour. By the time Trinity pulled into her grandmother's driveway, the news had already reached Texas. Inside the Musk compound in Austin, Elon Musk sat in his home office, staring at his phone screen. The headline read, Elon Musk's daughter rejects his name in shocking court filing. He clicked on the article. There was a photo of Trinity outside the courthouse, looking young and determined. The same face he saw in old family photos, but older now. Sadder. His assistant knocked on the door. Sir, the press is calling for a statement. Not now, Elon said without looking up. He read the article 3 times. Each time, the words hit him like a punch to the stomach. His daughter had legally erased him from her identity. She had told the world that she wanted nothing to do with him. Elon closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. When had things gone so wrong? When had the gap between them become so wide that she felt this was her only option? He remembered Trinity as a little girl, helping him build model rockets in the garage. She had been so curious, so excited about everything he was doing. "Daddy, when can we go to space?" she would ask, her eyes full of wonder. Now, she didn't even want to share his last name. His phone rang. It was his mother, calling from South Africa. "Elon, what happened?" May Musk's voice was filled with concern. "I'm seeing news about Trinity. Is this real?" "She changed her name," Elon said quietly. "She doesn't want to be my daughter anymore." "That can't be true. You two were always so close." Elon laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Were we, Mom? When was the last time I spent a whole day with her? When was the last time we had a real conversation?" The line was quiet for a moment. May Musk had watched her son build his companies from nothing. She had seen him work 18-hour days, 7 days a week. She had seen how success had changed him, how it had consumed him. "It's not too late," she said finally. "You can still fix this." But Elon wasn't so sure. Trinity had made her choice in the most public way possible. She hadn't just cut him out of her life quietly. She had done it in a courtroom, with cameras rolling, making sure the whole world knew. He opened Twitter, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. What could he possibly say? How could he explain to millions of followers that he had lost his daughter? In the end, he said nothing. He closed the app and put his phone face down on his desk. Back in Los Angeles, Trinity sat in her childhood bedroom at her grandmother's house. The walls were covered with old pictures, family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. In every photo, she was smiling. In many of them, her father was there too, but always looking slightly out of place, like he wasn't sure how he had ended up in a family photo instead of a board meeting. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing. News outlets wanted interviews. Friends from high school were texting, asking if the news was real. Her younger brothers had called, confused and upset. "Why didn't you tell us?" her 13-year-old brother had asked. "We could have helped." But Trinity hadn't wanted help. This was something she needed to do alone. She had spent years trying to get her father's attention, trying to make him see her. Now, finally, he was seeing her. Maybe not in the way she had wanted, but at least he couldn't ignore her anymore. She picked up a framed photo from her nightstand. It was from her 10th birthday. Her father had surprised her by taking the whole family to see a SpaceX launch. She was wearing a special VIP badge and grinning from ear to ear. Her dad was next to her, pointing up at the sky, explaining how the rocket worked. That had been one of the last times she remembered feeling truly connected to him. After that, the launches had become work trips, not family adventures. Birthdays had become something his assistant scheduled. Christmas had become an obligation he tried to fit between board meetings. Trinity set the photo face down on her nightstand. She couldn't look at it anymore. Tomorrow, she would start her new life as Trinity Wilson. She would go to MIT under her new name. She would study aerospace engineering, just like she had always planned. But she would do it without her father's help, without his guidance, without his name. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like the saddest thing in the world. As night fell, both Trinity and Elon sat in their separate homes, separated by distance and hurt. Neither of them knew that the truth behind their broken relationship was more complicated than either of them understood. They didn't know about the medical condition that had been affecting Elon for years, making it nearly impossible for him to connect emotionally with the people he loved most. All they knew was that something had broken between them, and neither of them knew how to fix it. The shocking declaration had been made. The world now knew that Elon Musk's daughter had rejected his name. But the real story, the heartbreaking truth behind why, was still hidden. That truth would change everything. But for now, it remained buried in medical files and private struggles, waiting for the right moment to surface and transform two broken hearts into something that might, someday, heal. Growing up as Elon Musk's daughter meant living in two worlds. There was the public world, where her father was a superhero. People stopped them on the street to take pictures. Magazine covers called him the man who will save the world. Kids at school asked if she got to ride in rockets. Then there was the private world, the real world. The world where Trinity learned that having a famous dad didn't mean having a present dad. In the beginning, things were different. Trinity could still remember those early days, back when Elon was just a guy trying to make his first company work. Their house in Palo Alto was small then. No mansion, no security guards, no assistants scheduling every minute of his day. Chow remembered Saturday mornings in the garage. Her twin brother, Xavier, would help hold the cardboard steady, while Elon cut it with scissors. They were building rockets, not real ones, just models to show Trinity and Xavier how space travel worked. One day, we'll go there together, Elon would say, pointing to the pictures of Mars taped to the garage wall. All of us, as a family. Trinity believed him. Why wouldn't she? Her dad could do anything. On Sunday afternoons, Elon would take them to the park. He'd push them on the swings while explaining how gravity worked. He'd help them build sand castles that looked like space stations. He'd lie on the grass with them, making up stories about aliens and adventures. "Tell us about the rocket ships again, Daddy," Trinity would beg, and he would. Every time. Even when he was tired from working late, even when his phone kept buzzing. With emails, he would tell them stories. Trinity still had one of those cardboard rockets in her closet at her grandmother's house. It was falling apart now, held together with yellowed tape. But she couldn't throw it away. It was from a time when her dad was just her dad, not the world's most famous inventor. Everything changed when PayPal started taking off. Suddenly, Elon was working 16 hours a day, then 18, then 20. "Just until we get to the next milestone," he would promise Trinity's mother, Justine. "Just until we close this deal. Just until we launch this product." But there was always another milestone, another deal, another launch. Trinity was 8 when she started keeping track. She made a calendar and put a star on days when her dad was home for dinner. In January, there were 12 stars. By June, there were 3. Xavier noticed too. He started having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night asking for their dad. But Elon was never home. He was at the office, or in a meeting, or on a plane to another meeting. "Where's Daddy?" Xavier would ask, tears running down his cheeks. "He's working," Trinity would say, the same words she heard their mom use every day. "He's working so we can have nice things." But Trinity didn't want nice things. She wanted her dad to help with her science project. She wanted him to teach her how to ride a bike. She wanted him to be there when she lost her first tooth. Instead, she got a new car for her mom, a bigger house, expensive toys that sat unopened in their boxes because playing alone wasn't fun. When Trinity turned 10, Elon promised to take her to see a SpaceX launch. He had started the rocket company by then, and it was his new obsession. She had been asking for months, and finally, he said yes. The night before the trip, Trinity couldn't sleep. She laid out her clothes, packed her backpack 3 times, and made a list of questions to ask her dad during the car ride. But when morning came, Elon's assistant called. There was a problem with the rocket. He needed to go to Texas immediately. The trip was canceled. Trinity's mom found her crying in her bedroom. "He promised," Trinity sobbed. "He always promises." Justine hugged her daughter tight. "I know, sweetie. Daddy's job is very important." "Am I important?" Trinity asked. Her mother paused. It was just a moment, but Trinity noticed. "Of course you are." But Trinity wasn't sure anymore. The turning point came when Trinity was 13. Xavier had been struggling with his anxiety for months, but he refused to talk to anyone except their dad. He said only Elon would understand because they were both weird and different from other people. One night, Xavier had a panic attack so bad that Trinity found him hyperventilating in the bathroom. She sat with him, holding his hand, trying to remember the breathing exercises the school counselor had taught them. "Call Dad," Xavier gasped between breaths. "Please call Dad." Trinity picked up the house phone and dialed his cell. No answer. She tried again. No answer. Finally, she called his office. "SpaceX, how can I help you?" a cheerful voice answered. "This is Trinity Musk. I need to talk to my dad. It's an emergency." "I'm sorry, sweetie. Your dad is in a meeting with the board. But I can take a message. My brother is having a panic attack. He needs to talk to Dad." The assistant's voice softened. "Oh, honey, that sounds serious. Let me try to get him out of the meeting. I'll have him call you back in just a few minutes, okay?" Trinity waited by the phone for 3 hours. Xavier finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying. Their mom came home from her writing class and took over. The call never came. When Elon finally called the next morning, after reading the assistant's note, Xavier refused to talk to him. Trinity watched her little brother hang up on their dad. "He wasn't there when I needed him," Xavier said simply. That night, Trinity realized something she'd been trying not to see. Her dad didn't just miss family dinners because of work. He missed family. He missed his kids growing up, learning things, needing him. She started paying attention differently. When Elon did come home, he seemed uncomfortable. He would ask generic questions. "How's school? Are you being good?" But when Trinity tried to tell him about her science fair project or her favorite book, his eyes would glaze over. Sometimes she would catch him looking at his phone while she was talking. Other times, he would interrupt her to answer emails. He was physically present, but emotionally somewhere else entirely. Trinity began testing him. She would make up stories about school, see if he was listening. "I got in a fight today," she'd say casually over dinner. "That's nice, honey," he'd reply, not looking up from his tablet. She'd told him she was failing math, joining the circus, dating a boy named Brad. He nodded and smiled at everything. So Trinity stopped trying. If her dad wasn't going to listen, anyway, why bother talking? By the time Trinity was 16, the distance between them felt impossible to cross. Elon had become a stranger who happened to live in their house, or rather, visited their house occasionally between business trips. She watched him on TV, giving interviews about changing the world, about his vision for humanity's future. He spoke with such passion, such clarity. This was the man the world saw, brilliant, driven, inspiring. But Trinity saw someone else. She saw a man who had forgotten how to be a father, who had traded bedtime stories for board meetings, who measured success in rocket launches and stock prices instead of school plays and family dinners. The last time Trinity really tried to connect with her dad was just before she left for college. She found him in his home office at their Austin mansion, surrounded by computer screens and piles of papers. "Dad?" She knocked softly on the open door. He didn't look up. "I leave for MIT next week." "That's great, honey." He was reading. "An email. I'm going to study aerospace engineering. Like you." Finally, he looked at her. For a moment, Trinity thought she saw a flicker of pride in his eyes. Maybe even love. "That's wonderful, Trinity. I'm proud of you." But then his phone rang, and that flicker disappeared as he turned to answer it. "Elon Musk," he said into the phone, already looking back at his computer. "Yes, I've been waiting for your call." Trinity stood in the doorway for another minute. Her dad had already forgotten she was there. She walked back to her room and started packing for college. As she folded her clothes, Trinity made a decision. She wasn't going to spend the rest of her life waiting for her father to show up. She wasn't going to keep hoping that someday he'd choose family over work. She was going to stop being disappointed by him, and the only way to do that was to stop expecting anything from him at all. Trinity didn't know it then, but something was happening in her father's brain. Something medical, something beyond his control, something that made it increasingly difficult for him to connect emotionally with the people he loved most. But all Trinity saw was rejection. All she felt was abandonment. All she knew was that her dad had chosen rockets over her, the world over his family, legacy over love, and that knowledge would shape everything she did next, leading to that shocking declaration outside the courthouse, a declaration that would force both father and daughter to confront the truth about their broken relationship. But first, there would be more pain, more distance, more mistakes that neither of them understood they were making. By the time Trinity turned 16, Elon Musk had become a household name. Tesla cars were everywhere. SpaceX was launching rockets every month. His face appeared on every magazine cover, from Time to Rolling Stone. But fame was a double-edged sword for the Musk children. Trinity couldn't walk through school without someone mentioning her father's latest tweet. She couldn't go to a coffee shop without someone recognizing her last name. "Is it true your dad wants to put people on Mars?" Strangers would ask. "Is it true you get to drive Teslas for free?" "What's your dad really like?" Trinity learned to give short answers. Yes. No. Busy. The hardest part was dating. Every boy who asked her out seemed more interested in her father's money than her personality. They'd start conversations about cars or rockets instead of asking what she liked to do. "So your dad is literally sending people to space," one guy said on their first date. He spent 40 minutes asking about Tesla stock instead of getting to know her. Trinity never went on a second date with him. At home, things got worse. Trinity's mother, Justine, had died the previous year from complications during surgery. The loss hit everyone hard, but especially Trinity and her siblings. For the first time in years, Trinity needed her father. She needed him to grieve with her, to help her process the loss of her mom. Instead, Elon threw himself even deeper into work. "It's how he copes," her grandmother explained. "He doesn't know how to deal with feelings." But Trinity didn't care how he coped. She needed him to sit with her while she cried. She needed him to look at photo albums and remember her mom. She needed him to be there when she woke up at 3 a.m. from nightmares. Instead, he was at the Tesla factory, working on the next production line. Then Grimes entered the picture. The Canadian musician was unlike anyone Elon had dated before. She was artistic, unconventional, and very public about their relationship. Trinity watched her father fall in love for the first time since her mother's death. But instead of being happy for him, she felt replaced. Grimes was everything Trinity wasn't: creative, mysterious, Instagram famous. "She's nice," Trinity's little sister whispered during one awkward family dinner. "But she's not Mom." "No one is," Trinity replied. Watching Elon with Grimes made Trinity realize how little she really knew her father. He laughed at things Grimes said. He held her hand during movies. He took days off to travel with her. All the things he had never done with his own family. When Elon announced they were moving to Texas, Trinity felt something inside her snap. "But all my friends are here," her younger brother protested. "And my school." "You'll make new friends," Elon said. "The house in Austin is much bigger. You'll love it." Trinity knew it wasn't about giving them more space. It was about being closer. To SpaceX headquarters, it was always about work. The Austin mansion was indeed huge. 9 bedrooms, a pool, smart home technology throughout. Elon's office was practically its own wing of the house, complete with multiple conference rooms and video screens. "See?" he said proudly during the house tour. "Now we can spend more time together. I'll be working from home more." But home office just meant he was physically present while mentally absent. Instead of coming home late from the office, he'd disappear into his wing for 12 hours at a time. Trinity started college at UT Austin while living at home. Not by choice, but because Elon insisted he wanted her close. But close meant she lived under the same roof as someone she rarely saw. She'd eat breakfast alone. Her dad would be on a conference call. She'd study in the living room. He'd walk through without noticing her. She'd try to say goodnight. His office door would be closed with the Do Not Disturb light on. One evening, Trinity decided to test something. She waited until dinner time and sat at the large dining room table. She didn't make food, didn't set the table, just sat there. At 6 p.m., the house staff left. At 7 p.m., Grimes came down and microwaved leftovers, eating while scrolling through her phone. At 8 p.m., Trinity was still sitting there. At 9 p.m., her younger brother wandered in looking for snacks. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Waiting for family dinner," Trinity replied. Her brother snorted. "Good luck with that." At 10 p.m., she heard Elon's office door open. Finally, she thought. He walked past the dining room, grabbed a protein shake from the fridge, and returned to Tuatufib, his office. He never even glanced in her direction. Trinity sat there until midnight, when the automatic lights turned off. She had spent 6 hours waiting for her father to notice her. He never did. The next morning, she confronted him. "I sat in the dining room for 6 hours yesterday," she said, barging into his office. Elon looked up from his computer, confused. "What? 6 hours? I was waiting for family dinner. You walked right past me." "I was working. Why didn't you say something?" "I shouldn't have to say something." "You should notice when your daughter is sitting alone at our dinner table." Elon set down his coffee mug. "Trinity, I'm building the future here. Electric cars, space travel. I don't care about the future," she exploded. "I care about right now. I care about having a dad who knows what I'm studying in school, who remembers my birthday without his assistant reminding him. That's not fair. My work, your work is always more important than us. Always." She stormed out before he could respond. That was their last real conversation before the name change. What Trinity didn't understand was that Elon had sat in his office after she left, feeling like a stranger in his own mind. He had replayed the conversation, trying to process her words, trying to feel the guilt he knew he should feel. But the emotions felt distant, muted. Like watching a movie about someone else's life, he opened his calendar and realized he didn't know what classes Trinity was taking. He checked his phone and saw 3 missed texts from her over the past month. He looked at family photos on his desk and couldn't remember the last time they'd taken a new one. The logical part of his brain, the part that solved engineering problems and ran companies, understood that he was failing as a father. But the emotional part, the part that should have felt pain and regret, was somehow disconnected. This disconnection had been getting worse for years. At first, he'd attributed it to stress, to working too much. But lately, he'd noticed other symptoms. Faces that should have been familiar looked strange to him. Family gatherings felt like business meetings with people he should know, but somehow didn't. Even with Grimes, moments of emotional intimacy felt forced, like he was acting the part of someone in love rather than genuinely feeling it. But Elon kept these thoughts to himself. He had always prided himself on being strong, on solving problems through logic and hard work. Admitting that something might be wrong with how his brain processed emotions felt like admitting failure, so he pushed harder at work. If he couldn't fix his personal relationships, at least he could change the world. Meanwhile, Trinity spent more and more time away from the house. She got a part-time job at a local bookstore, started spending weekends with her grandmother, made friends at college who didn't know who her father was. She created a life that had nothing to do with Elon Musk. The final straw was supposed to be a family vacation. Elon had promised to take everyone to Hawaii for a week. No work, no phones, just family time. Trinity didn't believe him, but her younger siblings were excited. Maybe this would be different. Maybe he'd actually show up. They canceled the trip. 3 days before departure, NASA had requested a meeting about some SpaceX mission. Elon couldn't turn it down. Next month, he promised. I'll make it up to you all. But next month brought another crisis, another urgent meeting, another broken promise. Trinity watched her siblings' faces fall. She saw the disappointment they were trying to hide. Her 10-year-old sister just nodded and went to her room. Her brother shrugged like he'd expected it. They were all getting used to it. Getting used to their father choosing work over family every single time. That night, Trinity lay in bed thinking about her future. She was almost done with her first year of college. Soon she'd graduate, maybe go to grad school. She'd get a job, maybe get married, have kids of her own. And through all of it, her father would be there, but not really there. He'd miss her graduation because of a board meeting. He'd miss her wedding because of a rocket launch. He'd miss his grandchildren growing up because he was busy changing the world. Unless she did something dramatic, something that would force him to see what he'd been missing. Trinity picked up her phone and Googled how to legally change your name. The process would take months, but she had time. Time to think, time to plan, time to make sure this was what she really wanted. By the time she walked into that courthouse 9 months later, the decision felt inevitable. Not angry or vindictive, just necessary. She couldn't keep waiting for her father to choose her, so she chose to stop being his daughter. The irony was that both Trinity and Elon were trying to solve the same problem, the growing distance between them, but neither understood what was really causing it. Trinity saw neglect where there was medical complexity. Elon saw family drama where there was desperate need for connection, and so the gap widened, leading to that shocking declaration that would change everything. But the truth that could have prevented it all remained buried in medical files and misunderstood symptoms, waiting for someone to connect the dots. Everything changed when Trinity started her own social media accounts. For years, she had avoided Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. She didn't want to be another rich kid influencer. She didn't want strangers commenting on her life. But when she turned 18, something shifted. She wanted to control her own narrative, so she created accounts under Trinity M without mentioning her famous last name. At first, her posts were simple. photos of coffee cups, book reviews, pictures from her college dorm. She gained a small following of people who thought she was just another college student. Then the photo leak happened. Someone at a house party recognized her and secretly took pictures. Trinity wasn't doing anything inappropriate, just talking with friends, holding a beer like any other college student. But when those photos hit the internet with the caption, "Elon Musk's daughter caught partying," everything exploded. Within hours, the photos were everywhere. The comments were brutal. "Look at her wasting daddy's money. Must be nice to party when your dad is literally saving the world. Spoiled brat. Doesn't even deserve that gene pool." But others defended her. She's 18. Let her live. Why are we judging her for having a normal college experience? Leave Elon's kids alone. Trinity didn't ask for any of it. She just wanted to be a regular person having regular experiences. But being Elon Musk's daughter meant privacy was impossible. She decided to address the controversy herself. She posted a series of tweets. "Yes, I'm Elon Musk's daughter. Yes, I go to college. Yes, I sometimes go to parties. I'm literally just trying to live like everyone else my age. Why is this news? Being someone's child doesn't mean I can't make my own choices or live my own life. I didn't choose to be born into this family, but I choose how I live now. I work part-time, I pay my own bills, I make my own decisions. My dad's success doesn't automatically make me a bad person or a good person. Judge me for who I am, not who my father is." The thread went viral, gaining thousands of retweets in hours. People loved her honesty. For the first time, Trinity felt like people were seeing her as an individual, not just as Elon's daughter. But then her father decided to weigh in. Without consulting her, without even calling first, Elon posted his own tweet. Proud of Trinity for standing up for herself. Just remember, with great privilege comes great responsibility. Let's all try to make better choices. Trinity stared at her phone in disbelief. He had just publicly lectured her, in front of millions of people. He had turned her moment of independence into a parenting lesson. Her phone started buzzing, text after text from friends. "Did your dad just—" "Oh no, that's awkward." The internet reacted immediately. Some people thought Elon's tweet was sweet. Others called it controlling. But Trinity felt humiliated. She typed out several angry responses, deleting each one. Finally, she posted, "Thanks for proving my point, Dad. Even when I speak for myself, you feel the need to speak for me. This is exactly the problem." The tweet blew up. "Let Trinity Speak" started trending. Father and daughter were now having a very public fight. Elon, realizing his mistake, tried to backtrack. He deleted his original tweet and posted, "I was trying," to support, not control. Still learning how to navigate social media with family. Proud of Trinity always. But the damage was done. Trinity felt exposed and frustrated. She had tried to establish her independence, and her father had swooped in to make it about him, just like he always did. The responses to Elon's backtrack weren't kind. "Delete your account, dude." Musk family drama is wild. Poor Trinity. Let the girl live. Trinity didn't respond publicly again, but privately, she texted her father, "Stop! Just stop! I can't do this anymore. You always make everything about you. Even when I'm trying to stand up for myself, you have to insert yourself into the narrative." Elon replied, "I was just trying to help. I'm proud of you. I don't need your help. I need you to respect my boundaries. I need you to let me be my own person." You are your own person. I've always supported that." Trinity laughed bitterly at her phone. "Have you? When? Name one time you've supported something I wanted that you didn't also want." The three dots appeared and disappeared for a long time. Finally, Elon wrote, "Call me. Let's talk about this properly." "No, I'm done talking." Nothing ever changes. That was their last text exchange before the name change. The social media incident revealed something important to the public. The Musk family wasn't as picture-perfect as everyone assumed, but it also revealed something to Trinity. Her father would never truly see her as separate from his own image and achievements. Every interaction, even supportive ones, became about him. His vision, his values, his public persona. Trinity wasn't a person to him. She was an extension of the Musk brand. What Trinity didn't know was that Elon was having his own crisis. After the Twitter exchange, he sat in his office for hours, staring at their conversation. He tried to understand why his attempt to be supportive had backfired so badly. To him, the tweet had seemed appropriate. He was proud of her. He wanted to remind her to be careful because the world was watching. Wasn't that what fathers were supposed to do? But reading it again, he could see how it sounded condescending, how it made her independence about his advice instead of her strength. He tried to call her. She didn't answer. He tried to visit her dorm. She wasn't there. He asked her younger siblings for help, but they were dealing with their own relationship, issues with him. For the first time, Elon realized that his children weren't just struggling with his absence. They were struggling with his presence too. Even when he showed up, he didn't know how to show up right. He started reading parenting books. He hired a family therapist. He tried meditation apps that promised to help with emotional intelligence. But nothing seemed to work. The disconnect he felt with his children wasn't something he could engineer his way out of. The more he tried to fix it logically, the worse it got. Meanwhile, Trinity was making plans. The social media incident had crystallized something for her. As long as she was Trinity Musk, she would never just be Trinity. She started seriously researching name changes. She talked to friends whose parents were divorced, who had changed their names for various reasons. She consulted a lawyer about the process. The decision wasn't easy. Changing her name meant giving up any claim to her father's legacy, his money, his connections. But it also meant freedom. Freedom to fail or succeed without anyone attributing it to her famous last name. She chose Wilson as her new surname, her mother's maiden name. It felt like honoring the parent who had been there, who had understood her, who had loved her without conditions. 6 months after the social media incident, Trinity filed the paperwork for her name change. She didn't tell anyone in her family about it. She wanted it to be final before they found out. The legal process took 3 months. During that time, Trinity lived in a strange state of limbo. To the world, she was still Trinity Musk. But in her mind, she was already becoming someone else. She fantasized about her new life, starting grad school with a clean slate, dating someone who didn't know about her famous father, getting a job based on her own skills, not her connections. But she also grieved. She mourned the father-daughter relationship she had wanted, but never had. She mourned the man who had taught her to love science, who had sparked her interest in space exploration, who had once been her hero. On the day she changed her name, Trinity felt like she was killing part of herself, but she also felt like she was being born. The truth was that both Trinity and Elon were fighting battles they didn't fully understand. Trinity thought she was fighting for independence from an absent father. Elon thought he was fighting to connect with a daughter who was pulling away. Neither of them understood that the real battle was in Elon's brain. a medical condition that was disrupting his ability to form emotional connections, making him feel like a stranger in his own family. This truth would have changed everything. It would have explained Elon's behavioral patterns, his inability to prioritize family, his emotional disconnect. It would have helped Trinity understand that her father's absence wasn't personal, it was pathological. But the truth remained hidden, buried in medical files and specialist consultations that Elon was too proud to share. And so the war continued, playing out on social media and in family gatherings, building toward that shocking declaration that would finally bring everything into the open. The final straw came during what was supposed to be a reconciliation dinner. It was December 2022, just before Christmas. Elon had promised to be there for Trinity's early acceptance to MIT's graduate program. No work, no phones, just family, he had sworn. Trinity didn't believe him, but something in his voice had sounded different. Maybe he was finally ready to change. The reservation was at 6 p.m. at their favorite Italian restaurant downtown. Trinity arrived 5 minutes early, dressed in the sweater her grandmother had given her. She had even practiced what she would say, how she would give him another chance. 15 p.m. No Elon. 30 p.m. Trinity ordered bread. 45 p.m. Her phone buzzed with a text. Running late. Start without me. Dad, 7 p.m. She ordered pasta, eating alone while other families laughed around her. 30 p.m. The hostess kept glancing at her table with pity. p.m. Trinity paid the bill and left. She didn't cry in the restaurant. She saved that for the drive home, sitting in her car in the parking lot, letting all the years of disappointment finally break through. When Elon finally arrived home at 10 p.m., he found Trinity in the living room, still in her sweater. "I'm so sorry," he said immediately. "There was a crisis with the Falcon launch sequence. I couldn't leave until—" "Stop," Trinity interrupted. "Just stop." "But you don't understand. If we don't fix this issue, we could lose 6 months of progress. I got into MIT grad school," she said quietly. Elon paused. That's wonderful, Trinity. I'm so proud of... I've been sitting here for 4 hours. 4 hours, Dad. I kept thinking you'd show up. That maybe this time would be different. I said I'm sorry. Work is your excuse. For everything! Trinity stood up, her voice rising. You missed my high school graduation because of work. You missed Mom's last birthday because of work. You're missing my entire life because of work. That's not fair. Everything I do is for this family. No, it's not. It's for you, for your vision, your legacy, your dream of Mars and electric cars and whatever else matters more than us. Elon's face hardened. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, the responsibility. Responsibility? Trinity laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You want to talk about responsibility? How about your responsibility to your children? How about remembering what I'm studying in school? How about knowing who my friends are? How about being here when I need you? I am here. No, you're not. You're physically present, but you're never actually here. You look at us like we're strangers, like you're trying to remember who we are. Something flickered in Elon's eyes, but he said nothing. Do you even know what I want to study at MIT? Do you know why I chose your field? Trinity's voice cracked. I chose aerospace engineering because I wanted to understand you. I thought if I learned about rockets and space, maybe we could finally have something to talk about. We can talk about space anytime. No, we can't. When I try to tell you about my projects, You check your phone. When I ask you about your work, you explain it like I'm 5 years old. You don't see me as a person, Dad. You see me as interruption from your real work. Elon sat down heavily on the couch. That's not true. Isn't it? When's my birthday? Silence. When did Mom die? Trinity. What's my favorite subject? What's my best friend's name? What am I scared of? More. Silence. You don't know, do you? You don't know me at all. Trinity picked up her purse. I'm done waiting for you to see me. I'm done hoping that someday I'll be important enough to compete with your work. Where are you going? To Grandma's. Like always. She was halfway, too. The door when Elon called out, I love you, Trinity. She stopped, but didn't turn around. I know you think you do. But love isn't just a feeling, Dad. It's showing up. It's paying attention. It's choosing us, just once, over everything else. I do choose you. This time, Trinity did turn around. Tears streamed down her face. Name one time. Name one time you chose us over work. One birthday, one school play, one dinner where you weren't checking your phone. Elon opened his mouth, then closed it. His mind searched through years of memories, looking for an example. But every memory seemed tainted. He was always rushing, always distracted, always somewhere else in his head. That's what I thought, Trinity whispered. Goodbye, Dad. This time, she made it to the door. Wait, Elon called desperately. What about Christmas? I'll be here for Christmas. We'll do something special. I promise. Trinity paused with her hand on the doorknob. Don't make promises you can't keep. I'm tired of hoping you'll keep them. After she left, Elon sat alone in the massive house. For the first time, the space felt too big, too empty. He tried to work, but he couldn't concentrate. He kept thinking about Trinity's questions. When's my birthday? March 15th. He knew that. His assistant always reminded him. When did Mom die? October 8th, 2018. He had been in meetings all day, dealing with Tesla's production crisis. Justine had been in surgery, and he hadn't made it to the hospital in time. What's my favorite subject? Physics, maybe? Or was it chemistry? He wasn't sure. What's my best friend's name? He had no idea. What am I scared of? This one hurt the most because suddenly, watching her walk away, he realized he was terrified of losing her. But he didn't know what she was afraid of. Elon spent that night doing something he hadn't done in years, looking through family photos. There were hundreds of them, but he noticed something strange. In almost every picture, he looked slightly off, not present, like he was calculating something while smiling for the camera. He found video of Trinity's high school graduation. She was valedictorian. How had he missed that? He watched her speech, where she mentioned him. My father always says to shoot for the stars. Well, Dad, I'm shooting for MIT. The camera had panned to his empty seat in the audience. He watched videos of family dinners where he dominated the conversation with work stories. Videos of birthday parties where he arrived late and left early. Videos of Christmas mornings where he spent more time on his phone than opening presents. In every memory, he saw Trinity watching him, hoping he would really see her. But his eyes were always somewhere else. Around 3 a.m., Elon felt something he hadn't experienced in years, pure, overwhelming regret. Not the kind he felt when a rocket failed or a product launch went wrong. This was deeper, more personal. He had failed his daughter, not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't seem to show he cared in a way that mattered to her. For the first time, Elon wondered if something was wrong with him. not with his priorities or his work ethic, but something neurological. He had noticed it for years, this feeling of being disconnected from emotional situations, even ones that should matter deeply to him. At family gatherings, he felt like an actor playing a role. During intimate conversations, his mind would drift to engineering problems. When people needed emotional support, he offered practical solutions instead. He had assumed it was just his personality, his way of coping with stress. But watching Trinity walk away, seeing the pain in her eyes, he realized it might be something more. The next morning, Elon didn't go to work. Instead, he drove to Trinity's grandmother's house. He sat outside for 2 hours, trying to gather the courage to knock on the door. When he finally did, Trinity's grandmother answered. "She doesn't want to see you, Elon." "I know, but please, just tell her. Tell her I finally heard her. Tell her I'm going to figure out what's wrong." "With the relationship?" "With me," Elon said quietly. "There's something wrong with me. The way I connect with people. The way I show love. I need to understand what it is." Trinity's grandmother studied his face. After a long moment, she nodded. "I'll tell her." But it was too late for words. Trinity had already made her decision. The legal paperwork for her name change was sitting in her room, half completed. 3 weeks later, she would file it. 6 months after that, she would stand outside that courthouse, legally no longer his daughter. The truth that could have saved their relationship, the medical explanation for Elon's emotional disconnect, remained. Locked away, Elon's pride wouldn't let him seek help, and Trinity's hurt wouldn't let her wait any longer. The breaking point had been reached. All that was left was for the world to bear witness to their fractured family, living at her grandmother's house. After that final dinner, Trinity had time to think clearly for the first time in months. The small white bungalow felt like a refuge from the chaos of the Musk world. No smart home features, no security cameras, no assistants scheduling every moment. She got a job at a local bookstore. Customers didn't recognize her there. She was just another college student shelving books and making coffee. For 8 hours a day, she could be nobody special. During quiet moments at work, Trinity would scroll through her father's Twitter. He posted constantly, sometimes 20 times a day. Most tweets were about work, SpaceX launches, Tesla innovations, cryptocurrency predictions, but occasionally he'd post something personal. "Missing my kids today. Family is everything. Proud of all my children chasing their dreams. The future is bright because of the next generation." These tweets hurt the most. Public declarations of fatherly love while he couldn't have a real conversation with any of his children. Twitter Elon was warm and present. Real-life Elon was distant and distracted. Trinity started taking screenshots of his tweets. She noticed patterns. He never posted specific details about his kids. No birthdays, no achievements, no personal moments. Just generic proud parent, sentiments that could apply to anyone. She also noticed he'd been quieter since their fight. Fewer jokes, less engagement with followers. He seemed as lost as she felt. One evening, Trinity found herself researching legal name changes. She'd been thinking about it for months, but now she was serious. The process was simpler than she expected. Fill out forms, pay fees, appear in court. Within a few months, she could be Trinity Wilson instead of Trinity Musk. Wilson was her mother's maiden name. Justine Wilson had been a writer, a dreamer, someone who understood that people needed emotional connection as much as they needed innovation. Taking her name felt like honoring the parent who had actually been present. But changing her name meant more than paperwork. It meant giving up any claim to the Musk fortune. It meant starting over completely. It meant accepting that she and her father were truly done. Trinity called her brother Xavier to talk it through. "Are you serious?" he asked, shocked. "You'd really change your name?" "I can't keep being his daughter when he's not really my father anymore," Trinity explained. "At least, not in any way that matters." "But what about all of us? What about the family?" "What family, Xavier? When's the last time we all had dinner together? When's the last time Dad asked about your anxiety? When's the last time he showed up for anything that wasn't a work event?" Silence on the line. "You could come with me," Trinity offered. "Fresh start for both of us." But Xavier wasn't ready for that. "I still hope he'll change. Maybe if I'm patient enough." "I've been patient for 19 years, Trinity said softly. "I'm out of patience." The next step was finding a lawyer. Trinity researched firms that specialized in family law, eventually choosing a small practice run by a woman who had once changed her own name after a difficult childhood. "This isn't uncommon," the lawyer assured her during their first meeting. "Adult children of celebrities often need to establish separate identities. The process is straightforward, but I want you to be absolutely sure." "I'm sure," Trinity said. "Immediately. Take 2 weeks. Think about it. If you still feel the same way, we'll file the paperwork." Those 2 weeks were torture. Trinity kept waiting for her father to call, to show up, to somehow sense that she was planning to make their fracture permanent. But her phone stayed silent. She spent nights writing in her journal, working through her feelings. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh. He is changing the world. He is brilliant and visionary and important. But I needed a dad, not a superhero. I needed someone who would choose me, just once, over saving humanity." I look at old photos, and I can see the exact moment he stopped being present. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual, like watching someone drift out to sea. One day, he was right, there on the beach with us. And then he was so far away we couldn't call him back. I used to be proud of being his daughter. Now it just feels like wearing someone else's clothes. The name doesn't fit anymore. After 2 weeks, Trinity returned to the lawyer's office. "I want to proceed," she said. Filing the paperwork felt both anticlimactic and monumental. Trinity filled out forms, signed documents, paid fees. Her new name looked strange, typed in official font. Trinity Wilson. The court date was set for 3 months out. That gave her time to prepare, but also time to reconsider. The lawyer warned her that once the judge approved the change, it would be final. During those 3 months, Trinity lived in limbo. Legally, she was still Trinity Musk, but in her mind, she was already transitioning to someone new. She started using Wilson at the bookstore, introducing herself to new customers with her future name. She opened a bank account under Trinity Wilson, even though it wasn't legally hers yet. She applied to graduate programs using both names, explaining in cover letters that a legal change was pending. Elon had no idea what was happening. Trinity had cut off all contact after the failed dinner. He tried calling, texting, even sending flowers to the bookstore. But she returned everything unopened. 1 month before the court date, Trinity received a package. Inside was a letter in her father's handwriting and a USB drive. The letter read, "Trinity, I know you're not speaking to me, but I hope you'll read this. I've been thinking about our last conversation. You asked when I chose you over work. I've been searching my memory, and I can't find a single example. That realization has been keeping me awake at night. I don't understand why I can't seem to prioritize the people I love most. It's not that I don't want to. Something in my brain makes work feel urgent while family feels optional. I know that sounds terrible. I know how much I've hurt you." The USB drive contains videos I've been recording. I wanted to talk to you, to really talk, without distractions. Maybe if you can't stand to hear me in person, you can at least hear these words. I love you, Trinity. I'm sorry I never knew how to show it properly. Dad, Trinity stared at the letter for an hour. Part of her wanted to watch the videos. Part of her wanted to give him another chance. But a larger part remembered all the broken promises, all the missed moments, all the times he'd apologized without changing. She threw the USB drive in a drawer without watching it. 2 weeks before the court date, Trinity told her grandmother about the name change. "Are you certain, sweetheart?" her grandmother asked gently. "I've never been more certain of anything. What if your father finally changes? What if he gets help? Then he can apologize to Trinity Wilson. Maybe someday I can forgive him. But I need to be my own person first." The day before the court date, Trinity couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the little girl who used to help her daddy build cardboard rockets. That girl had believed in him completely, had thought he could do anything. Now that girl was gone, replaced by a young woman who had learned that even brilliant men can be terrible fathers. Trinity wrote one final letter to her father. She planned to give it to her grandmother to deliver after the name change was official. "Dad, I know this will hurt you, and I'm sorry for that. But I can't keep hurting myself by hoping you'll become someone different. I still admire what you've achieved. I still believe in your vision for the future. But I needed a father who could exist in the present, who could see me as more than just another responsibility to manage. I hope someday we can have a relationship again. But it needs to be on different terms. I need to be Trinity Wilson when that happens, not Trinity Musk. I need to know that you see me for who I am, not just as an extension of your legacy. Thank you for teaching me to dream big. I'm sorry we couldn't dream together. Love always, your daughter." She sealed the letter but didn't give it to her grandmother yet. She wanted to wait until after the court appearance, until the decision was truly final. The next morning, Trinity woke up early, got dressed in her best outfit, and drove to the courthouse. Today, she would legally stop being Elon Musk's daughter. As to Tuis, she walked up the courthouse steps. Trinity felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. She was grieving the father she'd never had while celebrating the person she was about to become. Inside the courthouse, the process was quick and formal. The judge asked if she understood the implications of her decision. She said yes. He asked if anyone was forcing or coercing her. She said no. He asked if she wanted to proceed with the name change. "Yes, Your Honor," Trinity said clearly. "I do." With one signature, it was done. Trinity Wilson walked out of the courthouse a different person than the one who had walked in. The media would find out within hours. The story would explode across the internet. But for a few minutes, Trinity just sat in her car, holding her new identification papers, allowing herself to feel the weight of what she'd just done. She had officially ended her relationship with her father in the most public way possible. There was no taking it back now. As she drove home, Trinity's phone started buzzing with notifications. Someone had already leaked the news. Her shocking declaration was about to become headline news around the world. But Trinity felt strangely calm. For the first time in her life, she had made a decision purely for herself, without considering how it would affect her father's image or the family's reputation. She was Trinity Wilson now, and Trinity Wilson would deal with whatever came next. Chalfifis. The time Trinity got home from the courthouse, her phone was ringing non-stop. The story had already hit social media. Trinity Says No was trending on Twitter. Major news outlets were calling for statements. Elon Musk's daughter rejects father's name in shocking legal move. Family drama. Why Trinity Wilson cut ties with famous father. The cost of ambition. Musk's daughter chooses independence. Trinity turned off her phone and closed the curtains. She needed time to process what she'd done before dealing with the world's reaction. But the world wasn't waiting. Within an hour, there were reporters outside her grandmother's house. Camera crews lined the street. Neighbors were being interviewed about the Musk family drama. Her grandmother made tea and sat beside her on the couch. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" "Numb," Trinity admitted. "I knew this would happen, but seeing it actually unfold is different." "And your father?" Trinity hadn't thought about Elon's reaction until now. Was he seeing the news? Was he hurt? Angry? Did he understand finally that she was serious? Her phone, even on silent, kept lighting up with messages. She finally turned it over to see hundreds of texts from unknown numbers, emails from reporters, and missed calls from people who had somehow gotten her contact information. But there was nothing from her father. The silence from him was somehow worse than the media circus. At least the reporters were reacting. Elon's lack of response felt like the final proof that he didn't care, that he truly didn't see her as important enough to fight for. 5 days passed. The story dominated headlines. Talk shows debated whether Trinity was brave or spoiled. Social media split into camps. Team Trinity versus Team Elon. "She's an adult, making her own choices," some supporters posted. "Let her live her life." "Ungrateful brat," others replied. "Her father is changing the world and she's throwing a tantrum." Maybe if Elon spent more time with his family and less time on Mars, this wouldn't have happened. Rich people problems. Must be nice to have enough money to be dramatic. The comments section of every article became a battlefield. Everyone had an opinion about their family, about parenting, about ambition versus family values. Trinity tried to avoid reading the coverage, but it was impossible. Her face was everywhere. Old family photos were being circulated. Journalists were digging up her childhood, interviewing her friends, trying to construct a narrative. Some stories painted her as a victim of neglect. Others portrayed her as entitled and rebellious. A few tried to understand the deeper issues of growing up with a famous parent. None of them got it completely right. On the 6th day, Elon finally responded. It wasn't a tweet, not a public statement. It was a simple text to Trinity. "I respect your decision." That was it. 5 words. No explanation, no apology, no plea to reconsider. Just acknowledgement and respect for her choice. Trinity stared at her phone for an hour. Was this progress? Was this him finally listening to her? Or was it him giving up? She showed the text to her grandmother. 5 words, Trinity said bitterly. That's all I get? 5 words after changing my entire identity? Maybe that's all he knows how to give right now, her grandmother said gently. It's not enough. Is anything he could say enough? Trinity thought. About that. Was she hoping for a grand gesture? A public apology? Him showing up at the door, finally proving he could choose her over everything else? Maybe. But that wasn't who Elon was. He had never been the type for dramatic emotional displays. 2 weeks after the name change, Trinity was back at work at the bookstore. She used her headphones to block out the world, shelving books and trying to find some normalcy. A customer approached her while she was alphabetizing fiction. "Excuse me, are you Trinity? The one who—" "I'm just here to work," Trinity said quickly, not making eye contact. "I just wanted to say thank you," the woman continued. I changed my name to escape my toxic family too. Seeing your story made me feel less alone." Trinity paused, looking up. The woman was in her 40s, wearing a hospital badge that read, "Maria." "Changing my name was the best decision I ever made," Maria said. "Sometimes you have to save yourself first before you can save your relationships." After Maria left, Trinity felt something shift inside her. Her story wasn't just about her and her father anymore. Other people were finding meaning in it, seeing their own struggles reflected in hers. Her phone buzzed with a message from her brother Xavier. "Dad's been weird lately. He's seeing doctors. Medical stuff, I think. Says he's trying to understand something about himself." Trinity frowned. Doctors? Was Elon sick? Was that why he'd been so distant? But she pushed the thought away. He'd had years to explain, to reach out, to try. Whatever was happening now didn't change the past. That evening, Trinity's grandmother brought her a package. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Inside was a single photograph. Trinity and Elon in the garage, building one of those cardboard rockets. She was maybe 6 years old, wearing his oversized lab goggles. They were both laughing. On the back, Elon had written, "I found this while packing my old office. I remember this day perfectly. It was the last time I felt entirely present with you. I've been trying to get back there ever since. I'm sorry I couldn't figure out how." Dad, Trinity held the photo, studying their younger faces. She could see it now. In her father's eyes, even then, there was something distant. Even in this happy moment, part of him was somewhere else. But she could also see the love, the genuine joy of building something together. The connection they had before everything got complicated. For the first time since the name change, Trinity felt a crack in her resolve. Maybe there was more to his distance than she understood. Maybe his silence wasn't indifference, but something deeper. She put the photo on her nightstand, next to the one she'd turned face down months ago. 2 versions of her father. The present one who was there, and the distracted one who was always somewhere else. 3 weeks after the name change, Trinity received an email that would change everything. The subject line read, "About your father's condition." The sender was Dr. Sarah Chen, a neurologist at UCLA Medical Center. "Dear Ms. Wilson," the email began. "I've been following your story in the news. I believe there's important medical information about your father that you should know. Would you be willing to meet with me? I can't share details over email due to patient privacy, but I think what I have to tell you might help you understand some of his behavior over the years." Trinity read the email 3 times. A medical condition? Was that what Xavier had meant? About doctors? She typed and deleted several responses. Part of her wanted to know everything immediately. Part of her was scared of what this information might mean for all the anger she'd been carrying. Finally, she wrote back, "I'm willing to listen." They arranged to meet the following week at a coffee shop near the hospital. Trinity spent the intervening days in a strange state of anticipation and dread. What if there was a medical reason for her father's emotional distance? What if all these years of feeling unloved weren't about his choices, but about something wrong with his brain? The night before the meeting, Trinity couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about that photo he'd sent, about his text saying he respected her decision, about Xavier mentioning doctors. Maybe she'd been fighting a disease, not a man. Maybe her father had been struggling with something he didn't understand, something that made it impossible for him to show love the way she needed. But even if that were true, did it change anything? He was still the father who missed graduations and birthdays. He was still the man who chose work over family every single time. Trinity arrived at the coffee shop early, ordering a large coffee with extra sugar. She needed all the energy she could get for whatever Dr. Chen was about to tell her. When the doctor walked in, Trinity recognized something in her eyes, the look of someone who'd been carrying a heavy secret for too long. "Thank you for meeting with me," Dr. Chen said, sitting down. "What I'm about to tell you might change how you see your father, but I believe you have a right to know." Trinity nodded, her heart pounding. "Tell me everything." Dr. Chen opened a folder and pulled out several documents. "Your father has a condition called Capgras syndrome." And with those words, everything. Trinity thought she knew about her father, and their relationship was about to change forever. The shocking declaration had been made. The world had reacted. But the truth behind it all was just beginning to emerge, and that truth would be more heartbreaking than anyone could have imagined. Dr. Sarah Chen pulled a thick medical file from her folder. "Your father has been my patient for 3 years," she began. "He came to me originally for sleep disorders, but during our sessions, other symptoms emerged." Trinity leaned forward, her coffee growing cold. "What kind of symptoms?" "Capgras syndrome is a rare neurological condition," Dr. Chen explained. "People with this disorder recognize familiar faces rationally, but don't feel the emotional connection normally associated with those relationships." "What does that mean exactly?" "In your father's case, his brain can identify you as his daughter logically. He knows who you are, remembers your history together. But the emotional recognition, the feeling of love and connection, is disrupted." Trinity felt her stomach drop. "So, he knows I'm his daughter, but he doesn't feel it?" "Exactly. Imagine looking at someone you love and knowing they should mean everything to you, but feeling like you're looking at a stranger." The logical part of his brain works perfectly, but the emotional part is disconnected. Dr. Chen showed Trinity brain scans and medical reports. "See these areas highlighted in blue? The regions responsible for emotional recognition show reduced activity. When your father looks at family members, his brain processes the visual information correctly, but the emotional response is severely dampened." "How long has he had this?" Trinity asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We believe it began around 2015, possibly triggered by extreme stress and sleep deprivation. It worsened gradually over the years. Your father described it as feeling like he was watching his own life through glass. He could see everything happening, but couldn't fully connect with it emotionally." Trinity thought back to 2015. That was when Tesla was struggling, when Elon was working 18-hour days, when he stopped coming to family dinners. She had thought he was choosing work over them, but what if he was fighting something beyond his control? Did he know? Did he understand what was happening? Dr. Chen nodded sadly. He knew something was wrong. He described it as emotional numbness during family interactions. He tried various treatments: therapy, medication, neurofeedback. Nothing fully resolved the issue, though he made some progress. She pulled out another document. "Read this. It's from his journal entries during treatment." Trinity took the paper with trembling hands. In her father's familiar writing, "Watched Trinity's school play today. She was amazing. My brain knows I should feel proud, overwhelmed with love. But all I feel is this clinical observation. My daughter is talented. It's like being emotionally paralyzed while still being intellectually aware. She deserves a father who can feel proud, not just think it." Tried to hug Xavier when he was crying about Mom. "Physically, I was there. Mentally, I was computing child sad, father should comfort. But the instinctive warmth, the automatic parental response, it's missing. I'm failing them, and I don't know how to fix it. Family dinner tonight. Everyone laughing, sharing stories. I participated, asked questions, but felt like an actor playing father rather than being one. The script says I should feel connected, but I just feel distant. They notice. They always notice. Trinity's eyes filled with tears. He knew. He knew he was hurting us, but he couldn't. He couldn't access the emotions he desperately wanted to feel. Dr. Chen finished. Your father spent years in treatment, trying to reconnect with those feelings. He was terrified you would discover his condition and think it was an excuse. But why didn't he tell us? Why did he hide it? Dr. Chen sighed. Pride, fear, shame. Many patients with emotional processing disorders struggle to admit something's wrong. Your father is a problem solver. He's built rockets, created electric cars. To admit he couldn't fix his own brain was devastating to him. She showed Trinity more documents. Look at this treatment log. 3 different specialists, experimental therapies, even considering brain stimulation techniques. He tried everything. Trinity read through pages of medical notes, treatment plans, progress reports. The picture they painted was heartbreaking. A man desperately trying to feel love for his children while battling a brain that wouldn't cooperate. There's something else, Dr. Chen said gently. Your father specifically asked me to reach out to you if he ever felt he was losing one of his children completely. He's watched the news coverage of your name change. He said, and these are his exact words, she deserves to know it wasn't personal. It was pathological. Trinity wiped away tears she couldn't control. All this time I thought he didn't care. I thought work was more important to him than us. In a way, work was his refuge. When he couldn't access emotional connections with family, he could still feel successful at work. Projects had clear outcomes, measurable progress. Family relationships required something his brain couldn't provide. Dr. Chen handed Trinity a sealed envelope. He wrote this after your name change. He asked me to give it to you if you ever wanted to understand. With shaking hands, Trinity opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in her father's handwriting. My dearest Trinity, if you're reading this, Dr. Chen has told you about my condition. I know it doesn't excuse years of emotional absence. I know it doesn't erase the hurt I've caused. But I need you to understand that my distance was never about not loving you. It was about being unable to express that love in ways you could feel. Every missed birthday, every interrupted conversation, every moment I chose work over family, dinners, I was also missing you. But missing something requires feeling its absence, and my brain made even that impossible. I would watch you grow, achieve, struggle, and celebrate, all while feeling like I was viewing your life through a thick fog. I could see you, but I couldn't reach you emotionally. Do you have any idea how terrifying that is? To love someone desperately, but be unable to feel it fully? I tried to compensate by providing financially, by setting up your future, by being proud of your achievements. But these were logical responses to a problem that required emotional ones. I see that now. Changing your name was the first time in years I felt something truly, completely. Not the muted version of emotion I usually experience, but pure, overwhelming grief. Perhaps it took losing you to break through whatever barrier exists in my brain. I don't ask for forgiveness or understanding. I know the hurt is real, regardless of medical explanations. But I needed you to know that your father, the one who built rockets with you in the garage, never stopped loving you. He just got lost somewhere inside his own mind. I'm still trying to find my way back. All my love. Dad! Trinity sat in the coffee shop, crying openly now. The carefully constructed narrative she'd built, of a father who chose work over family, who didn't care enough to show up, was crumbling. "What does this mean?" she asked Dr. Chen. "What do I do with this information?" "That's entirely up to you," the doctor replied gently. Many families find that understanding the medical component helps them reframe their relationships. But understanding doesn't erase pain, and it doesn't obligate you to do anything. Trinity thought about the USB drive her father had sent, still unwatched in her drawer. About his 5-word text, about years of missed dinners and forgotten birthdays that now had a different explanation. Is he getting better? Dr. Chen hesitated. His recent brain scans show some improvement. The intense emotional response to your name change seems to have activated dormant neural pathways. It's unusual, but sometimes major emotional events can impact neurological conditions in unexpected ways. Trinity felt like she was seeing her entire childhood through a different lens. The father who seemed emotionally absent was actually fighting to feel anything at all. The man who worked constantly wasn't choosing work over family. He was hiding in the only place where his brain still functioned normally. "I need to think," Trinity said finally. "I need time to process all of this." "Of course. But Trinity, your father loves you more than his brain can properly express. That's the tragedy and the truth of this whole situation." Trinity left the coffee shop with a folder full of medical documents, a letter from her father, and a completely rewritten understanding of her life. As she drove home, she thought about the name change. She was still Trinity Wilson. That decision stood. But now she knew the full story behind why she'd needed to make it. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Dr. Chen said you met. I hope you can understand, even a little." For the first time in months, Trinity typed back, "I'm trying, Dad. I'm trying to understand everything." The shocking declaration had revealed an even more shocking truth. But now, with this medical revelation, both father and daughter had a chance to rebuild their relationship with full knowledge of what they'd been fighting against all along. The question remained, would understanding be enough to bridge the gap between them? Trinity hadn't slept since meeting with Dr. Chen. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's journal entries, his desperate attempts to feel something, anything, for his children. She kept picking up her phone to text him, then putting it down. What could she say? "Sorry, I thought you didn't love me when you actually had a brain disorder." It didn't feel adequate. On the third sleepless night, Trinity finally retrieved the USB drive Elon had sent weeks ago. She plugged it into her laptop with trembling hands. The folder contained 15 video files, each titled with a date. She clicked on the first one. Her father appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like his home office. His hair was messier than usual, his eyes tired. "Trinity, I don't know if you'll ever watch this, but I need to try explaining," he began. "I've been seeing doctors, trying to understand why I can't connect the way I should." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Do you remember when you were 7 and you fell off your bike? You came running to me with scraped knees, crying. Logically, I knew I should comfort you. I knew all the right words, the right actions. But standing there, looking at you, I felt like I was reading from a script." Trinity paused the video, tears already forming. She remembered that day. Her father had cleaned her wounds efficiently, applied bandages perfectly, but something had felt off about the interaction. Now she understood. She clicked on another video, dated from last Christmas. I bought presents for everyone, Elon continued in this recording. Spent weeks researching what each kid would like. I knew intellectually that gift-giving shows love, but when I wrapped them, when I imagined your faces opening them, I felt nothing. It's like loving someone through a thick wall of glass. You can see them, but you can't touch them. Video after video revealed the same heartbreaking pattern. Her father analyzing every family interaction, trying to engineer love like he engineered rockets. He spoke about missing her MIT acceptance, celebration, about the canceled Hawaii trip, about every moment Trinity had felt abandoned. In one recording, he was crying. I tried meditation. I tried therapy. I even tried those experimental electromagnetic treatments that promise to reactivate emotional centers. Nothing works. My brain it's broken when it comes to family. The final video was dated just 2 days ago. I saw the news about your name change. For the first time in years, I felt something immediate and overwhelming. Pure loss. Pure grief. Maybe it took losing you completely to crack through whatever's been blocking my emotions. He looked directly into the camera. Trinity, I know this isn't an excuse. I know medical conditions don't erase the pain I've caused, but I need you to know I've been fighting for years to feel the love that's always been there in my head, but somehow couldn't reach my heart. Trinity closed the laptop and sobbed. These weren't the polished, distant explanations she was used to from her father. These were raw confessions from someone who had been battling his own brain for years. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elon. Did you watch them? I know it's too little, too late. I understand if you still need space. For the first time since the name change, Trinity felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. She typed back, "Can we talk? Really talk? Anytime. Anywhere. I'll be there." Trinity suggested meeting at the park where they used to build rockets as kids. Neutral ground, with memories from before everything got complicated. She arrived early, sitting on the same bench where they used to plan their cardboard space missions. Elon appeared exactly on time, looking nervous in a way she'd rarely seen. Him. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting down but leaving space between them. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me." "I wasn't sure either," Trinity admitted. "But after talking to Dr. Chen, after watching your videos, I need to understand what happens next." They sat in silence for a moment, watching kids play on the playground. You remember why I chose aerospace engineering?" Trinity asked finally. "To follow in my footsteps," Elon guessed. "No, I chose it because I thought if I understood rockets and space, maybe we'd finally have something to talk about. Maybe you'd see me as someone worth your time." Elon looked down at his hands. "I always saw you as worth my time, but my brain made spending time with you feel like trying to play a piano with gloves on. I knew what I was supposed to do, but couldn't make the connection properly. Why didn't you tell us about the condition earlier?" Pride, fear, shame. Pick one. He laughed bitterly. "I've built companies that could change the world, but I couldn't fix my own brain." How do you admit that to your children? Trinity thought. About that. You know what hurts the most? Not the missed dinners or forgotten birthdays. It's that you never let me help. You never gave me the chance to understand. I was protecting you from seeing me struggle. I didn't want you to see your father as broken, but we saw you as absent instead, which is worse. Elon was quiet for a long time. I think I understand that now. I spent so much energy hiding my condition that I forgot to show you I was trying. Trinity pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. One of the old pictures of them building rockets in the garage. I kept this. Even when I was angriest, I couldn't throw it away. Because I remembered that day. How focused you were. How you explained everything like I was smart enough to understand. You were always smart enough, Elon said quietly. I just lost my way in my own head. They talked for hours. Trinity asked questions about his treatment, about how the condition affected him day to day. Elon answered honestly, without deflection or technical jargon. The strangest part, he explained, is that I remember feeling connected to you all when you were very young, before the condition fully developed. That's what makes it so frustrating. I know what I'm missing because I remember having it. Is that why work became so important? Because you could still feel successful there? Elon nodded. Work had measurable outcomes. Family required emotional intelligence I couldn't access. It was easier to hide in what I could control. As the sun began to set, Trinity felt exhausted but lighter somehow. The anger that had driven her to change her name was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Compassion, maybe. Or just clarity. I don't know what happens next, she admitted. Understanding the medical stuff helps, but it doesn't erase years of feeling invisible. I know. And I don't expect anything to change overnight. But Trinity... He paused, looking directly at her. When you changed your name, when I realized I might actually lose you forever, something broke open in my brain. For the first time, in years, I felt genuinely connected to someone. Not the muted version of emotion I'm used to, but real, immediate fear of loss. Dr. Chen mentioned that. She said major emotional events can sometimes create new neural pathways. I've started a different treatment program. Brain training, they call it. Using the breakthrough from losing you to forge new emotional connections. It's working differently than before. Trinity stood up to leave. I need time to process all of this. But Dad, I'm glad you told me the truth. Finally. Elon stood too. Would it be okay if I hugged you? I know that might be weird to ask, but... Trinity nodded. They hugged. Awkwardly at first, then more naturally. For the first time in years, Trinity felt like she was hugging her actual father, not just someone playing the role. I'm still Trinity Wilson, she said when they pulled apart. That won't change. I understand. You needed to become your own person. I just hope, maybe someday, you can be Trinity Wilson, who happens to be my daughter, rather than Elon Musk's daughter, who happens to exist. Trinity smiled, a real smile for the first time since their fight. I think I'd like that. As they walked back to their cars, Trinity realized something important. Her shocking declaration had forced both of them to confront truths they'd been avoiding. Now they had a chance to rebuild their relationship on honesty instead of assumptions. It wouldn't be easy. Years of pain don't disappear because of one conversation. But understanding the truth, the medical reality behind her father's emotional distance, had cracked open a door that had been locked for far too long. The question of whether understanding would be enough to bridge the gap between them was beginning to find its answer. Not in a single moment of forgiveness, but in the possibility of something new. Something built on truth instead of expectation. On actual connection instead of the idea of connection. For the first time in years, both father and daughter left, a meeting with hope. 2 weeks after their park meeting, Trinity got an unexpected call. Her father was being interviewed on a late-night talk show, and the host had just brought up the name Change. "Turn on Channel 7, her grandmother said urgently. "Your father's talking about you on TV." Trinity grabbed the remote, her heart pounding. She'd specifically asked him not to discuss their private conversations publicly. If he broke that trust, now. But when she saw him on screen, something was different. He looked nervous, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen him in interviews before. "And I know everyone has opinions about family drama," the host was saying, "but there's something our viewers should understand about why my daughter felt she needed to take such a dramatic step." Trinity held her breath. "3 years ago, I was diagnosed with Capgras syndrome," Elon began, his voice steady but clearly emotional. "It's a neurological condition that affects emotional recognition. My brain can identify my children logically, but the feeling of connection, the emotional bond, is severely disrupted." The audience fell silent. This was not what anyone had expected to hear. "For years, I thought I could manage it privately. I tried treatments, therapy, medications. But what I didn't realize was how much my children were suffering from my emotional disconnect." The host leaned forward. "Are you saying this medical condition is why your daughter felt the need to change her name?" "I'm saying I spent years being physically present but emotionally absent with my family. To them, it looked like I didn't care. The truth is, I care desperately, but couldn't express it properly." Elon pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. "With Trinity's permission, I want to read something she wrote to me after we finally talked honestly." Trinity's eyes widened. She had sent him that letter yesterday, never imagining he'd share it publicly. "Dad," Elon read, his voice breaking slightly, "understanding your condition doesn't erase the years of feeling invisible, but it does help me see those years differently. You weren't choosing work over us. You were choosing the only place your brain could function normally. I'm still Trinity Wilson, but maybe now we can build something new, something based on truth instead of expectations. Love, your daughter." The studio audience was completely quiet. Some people were crying. "My point," Elon continued, "is that we often make assumptions about why people behave certain ways. I let my pride keep me from sharing my struggles, and my daughter paid the price. Her decision to change her name was the wake-up call I needed to finally be honest." Trinity watched her father on TV, feeling something she hadn't experienced in years: genuine pride in who he was being. Not the genius inventor, not the world changer, but a father admitting his failures and fighting for his children. Her phone immediately started buzzing with messages from friends, reporters, and social media notifications. The interview was already going viral, but this time, the tone was different. Instead of judgment and gossip, people were sharing their own stories of family struggles, of hidden conditions, of misunderstood relationships. The next morning, Trinity found herself in the unusual position of wanting to respond publicly. She posted on her social media, which she'd avoided since the name change. "Watching my dad share something so personal last night, I realized our story isn't just about us anymore. It's about how we assume the worst about people's behavior instead of trying to understand what they might be going through. Yes, I changed my name. Yes, I was hurt and angry. But now I know the full truth. And truth changes everything." Trinity Wilson, the response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages poured in from people whose families had dealt with neurological conditions, from adult children with complicated parent relationships, from parents struggling to connect with their kids. One message stood out, from a neuroscientist. "Thank you both for sharing this. Capgras syndrome is poorly understood by the public. Your family's story will help others recognize that emotional disconnect isn't always about a lack of love. A week later, Trinity received an invitation that surprised her. NASA was hosting a symposium on family dynamics in high-stress careers, particularly in aerospace. They wanted both her and her father to speak. "It's optional," Elon texted when she mentioned it. "But I think our story might help other families avoid what we went through." Trinity thought about it for days. She was still protective of their healing process, but she also recognized that their experience had accidental value for others. "I'll do it," she finally decided. "But we tell the whole truth. All of it." The symposium was held at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. Trinity flew in the day before, meeting with other speakers, astronauts, mission controllers, families who had navigated the unique challenges of space-related careers. When she and Elon took the stage together, Trinity felt nervous but determined. They had rehearsed their presentation, but agreed to keep it conversational, honest, and unrehearsed in places. "Hi," Trinity began, addressing the full auditorium. "Most of you know my father as Elon Musk, founder of SpaceX, but I'm here as Trinity Wilson, his daughter who legally changed her name last year." She heard murmurs through the crowd. "I want to tell you why I did that, what we discovered about my father's condition, and how we're working to rebuild trust. Because if our story can help even one family communicate better, then sharing it is worth it." For the next hour, they alternated speaking. Elon described his symptoms, his treatments, his fears about revealing weakness. Trinity talked about the loneliness, the anger, the feeling of being constantly overlooked. Then they discussed their breakthrough, how his condition became visible to both of them, how honest conversation changed their understanding of their entire relationship. "The point isn't that medical conditions excuse behavior," Trinity explained. "It's that understanding the root causes of behavior can transform how we approach solutions. And for me," Elon added, "it meant finally admitting that I couldn't engineer my way out of an emotional problem. I needed to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to let my children see me struggle." During the Q&A session, the questions were thoughtful and personal. Many audience members shared their own stories of family challenges, of hidden struggles, of the gap between intention and impact. One astronaut asked, "How do you balance the demands of changing the world with being present for your family?" Elon and Trinity looked at each other. "That's what we're still figuring out," Trinity answered honestly. "But now we're figuring it out together, with full information instead of assumptions." After the symposium, as they prepared to leave, Elon turned to Trinity. "Thank you for doing this with me. I know it wasn't easy." "Neither was changing my name," Trinity replied with a small smile. "But sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the most important conversations." They hugged goodbye, still awkward, still learning, but genuine. As Trinity drove to the airport, she reflected on how much had changed since that day outside the courthouse. The shocking declaration that had divided them publicly had eventually forced the truth into the open. Now, their story wasn't just about a daughter rejecting her famous father's name. It was about misunderstood conditions, about the courage to be vulnerable, about rebuilding relationships with honesty and patience. The truth had been more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. A father unable to feel the connections he desperately wanted. A daughter interpreting medical symptoms as personal rejection. But the truth had also been healing. As she boarded her flight home, Trinity realized she was no longer running from her identity as Elon Musk's daughter. She was Trinity Wilson, who happened to have a father with a neurological condition, who happened to be rebuilding their relationship one honest conversation at a time. The gap between them hadn't disappeared. Years of pain don't vanish overnight. But understanding had built a bridge where anger once stood, and hope where there had been resignation. For the first time since the name change, Trinity felt genuinely optimistic about where their relationship might go. Not back to what it was. That was impossible. But forward to something new, something built on truth instead of assumptions, connection instead of expectation. The shocking declaration had revealed the truth. The truth had changed everything, and change, as Trinity was learning, was the first step toward healing. 6 months after the NASA symposium, Trinity found herself in an unexpected place, back in her father's Austin workshop. But this time, instead of cardboard rockets, they were building something for SpaceX, a prototype module for the Mars Habitat program. "Pass me the calibrator," Elon said, completely focused on the circuit board in front of him. Trinity handed him the tool, then caught herself smiling. They were actually working together. Not as father and daughter trying to force a relationship, but as two engineers solving a problem. "You know," Trinity said, adjusting the wiring, "this is the first time in years we've built something together, without it feeling forced." Elon looked up from his work. "Progress," he said simply, but his eyes held something that might have been happiness. Their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had expected. Not the close father-daughter bond Trinity had once wanted, nor the complete separation she had chosen through the name change. Something in between. Honest, careful, and surprisingly comfortable. They met every 2 weeks now, sometimes to work, on projects, sometimes just to talk. Trinity had kept her grandmother's house as her primary residence, maintaining the independence she'd fought so hard for. But she accepted dinner invitations at the Austin mansion, occasionally, usually when other siblings were there to buffer any awkwardness. "How's the treatment going?" Trinity asked, a question she never would have been able to ask before. "Better. The new therapy seems to be working differently than the old ones." Elon hesitated, then continued, "I felt something last week. When Xavier got into Harvard, I felt genuinely proud. Not the logical version of pride, but the emotional kind. Like warmth spreading through my chest." Trinity paused her work to look at him. "That's huge, Dad." "It is." He smiled slightly. Small victories. These conversations had become normal for them, talking about his condition without it defining every interaction. Trinity had learned to navigate the good days and the difficult ones, understanding when to push for connection and when to give him space. Her phone buzzed with a text from her brother. "Dad made it to my play tonight. Actually seemed to be watching. Weird, but nice." Trinity showed Elon the text. "Looks like the new treatment is helping with more than just pride." "I'm trying," Elon said simply. "Turns out showing up is easier when you acknowledge that your brain needs help to process emotions." "Who knew?" Trinity laughed. A real laugh that surprised both of them. Revolutionary concept. Honesty improves relationships. "Speaking of honesty," Elon said, setting down his tools, "I wanted to ask you something. MIT called about their aerospace program. They want you to present your thesis research at their annual conference." Trinity frowned. "How do you know about my thesis research?" "Because you're brilliant, and you've been publishing papers. I've been reading them, all of them. Did you know? Your approach to atmospheric entry calculations is being cited by NASA?" She stared at him. "You read my papers?" "Of course I did. You're my daughter. You're doing incredible work in my field." He paused. "Is that okay? That I'm proud of your work?" Trinity felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of her was thrilled that he'd been following her academic career. Part of her was wary of old patterns. Was he trying to live through her achievements? As long as you're proud of the work, not using it to brag on Twitter, she said carefully. I haven't mentioned you on social media once since the name change, Elon said. I figured you'd let me know when you're comfortable with that, if ever. The consideration in that statement struck her. This was what she'd wanted all along. To be seen as an individual, not an extension of his brand. The MIT conference sounds interesting, she admitted. Will you be there? It's during the same week as your Starship reveal. Elon was quiet for a moment. I'll be at your presentation. The Starship reveal can be rescheduled. Trinity almost dropped the component she was holding. Her father, choosing her event over a major SpaceX announcement? Are you serious? Completely. Unless you'd prefer I didn't come. No, I'd like you to be there. They worked in companionable silence for a while, both processing the significance of the moment. This was what healing looked like. Not dramatic breakthroughs, but small choices that built trust over time. Trinity, Elon said eventually, I know you've kept the Wilson name for good reasons, but I want you to know something. Whether you're Trinity Musk or Trinity Wilson, I'm proud of who you've become, especially who you became while I was too lost in my own head to notice it happening. Trinity felt tears prick her eyes. That means more than you know. And I want to thank you, he continued, for forcing me to confront the truth, for not giving up entirely, even when you had every right to, for teaching me that love isn't just a feeling, it's showing up, paying attention. When 19-year-old Trinity Musk stood outside a Los Angeles courthouse, legally changing her name to Wilson, me about reaching for the stars. Gasped. Trinity replied, the daughter softly, of one of the most famous men on Earth, I taught you about coming back to Earth. Publicly severed ties with her Elon father, said, and they both smiled. What drove a daughter as they to such a dramatic decision? Trinity realized their relationship wasn't what anyone expected. Equilibrium. The October morning air felt Wilson heavy now, as Trinity Musk stepped out of the Los Angeles County Courthouse. Her ability to choose her own path in her chest. But she was also, in ways she held authentic rather than obligated, change everything. Her father's daughter. The documents were still warm 2 months from the later, printer. Trinity stepped onto the stage right there in black and white. The auditorium was packed with aerospace professionals, academics, at 19 years old, press. She had legally changed her name. There more for the Musk family Musk's daughter anymore than her research. Not officially. As she began her presentation on advanced propulsion surrounded her. Trinity spotted her father in the third row, shoving microphones in his face. He wasn't Everyone wanted to know why. He was listening. Would the daughter of one of the world's most famous men in a way that would have been impossible a year ago? Trinity, after her presentation, over here during the Q&A session, someone inevitably asked about her name change. Her hands trembled as she looked at the crowd. On her relationship this was her father she had been dreading. Trinity took a deep breath. I want nothing to do with my dad, was about finding my own identity. Her voice was steady, even though learning about my father's medical condition this isn't about fame helped me understand our past. This is about being true to who I am. Rebuilding our relationship. The words has been about coming out of her mouth. Accepting truth. She had instead of clinging to expectations, but saying them out loud. She looked directly at Elon in the audience. When did you last speak to your family we used to be? We're something different now, reporter called something out. Built on Trinity honesty, looked down at her feet. Appropriate boundaries. I haven't talked to him in 9 months. Respect. The crowd gasped. It's not perfect. 9 months without real. Talking to her dad erupted in applause. That seemed impossible for a family. As attendees as the Musks appeared Trinity to be on social media, say, what about your inheritance? I think someone shouted their story gives me hope for my own complicated family relationships. Trinity replied. That evening, I don't want dinner at a small restaurant near campus. Her phone buzzed Trinity and Elon sat across from each other. That it was probably still figuring out how to be in the same space. The story was already spreading like wildfire across the internet. You did well today. As she pushed through the crowd toward her car, not just the presentation, Trinity thought about how different this moment was exceptional from what she had imagined as a little girl. I'm learning that our story is bigger than just us. Alongside her father, people see their own struggles in what we've been through. The world. Maybe
Now,
that's the real victory.
she just wanted to
Elon
disappear.
mused. Not fixing
Inside her old
everything
Honda
perfectly,
Civic,
but
Trinity
showing
sat
that
for a moment
understanding
before
and
starting the
effort
engine.
can create
The courthouse was
something
behind
new.
her,
But the real
Trinity
challenge
raised her
lay
water
ahead.
glass.
Her phone wouldn't
To
stop
imperfect
buzzing.
progress,
Text messages
Elon
flooded
clinked
in
his
from
glass
numbers
against
she didn't
hers.
recognize, to
Her
showing
social
up,
media
even when
accounts,
it's hard,
which she had tried to keep
especially
private,
when it's
were
hard,
exploding with
as they talked about her
notifications.
research, about his latest
As she
projects,
drove home to her
about
grandmother's
family
house,
plans for the
Trinity
upcoming
thought
holidays.
about the last time
Trinity
she had seen
felt
her
a
father.
profound
It was
shift.
at a family dinner
She was no
almost
longer
a year
waiting
ago.
for a perfect father.
He had
or
arrived
a perfect
late,
relationship.
as always.
She
and
was
spent the entire
participating in
meal on
something
his phone.
real, messy,
When she tried to
and
tell him about
continually
getting into
evolving.
MIT, he had
The shocking
interrupted her with a
declaration
story
had
about some
indeed
new rocket
revealed the
design.
truth.
The truth
That
had
night,
changed
she had
everything.
made a decision.
And change,
If her
as
father
Trinity
couldn't
had
make
learned,
time for her,
wasn't a
she would
one-time
stop
event.
making excuses
It was an
for him.
ongoing choice to keep
She would
showing
stop
up for
waiting
each
for
other,
him to show up.
honest about limitations,
She would stop
but
being
committed
his daughter.
to growth. The drive
For the
home
first
took an
time
hour.
since
By
legally
the time
becoming
Trinity pulled
Trinity
into her
Wilson,
grandmother's driveway,
she felt
the news had
genuinely
already
grateful
reached
for the name.
Texas.
Not because
Inside
it
the
separated
Musk
her from her
compound in
father,
Austin,
but
Elon
because
Musk
it had
sat
forced
in
both
his
of
home
them to
office,
rebuild from a
staring at his
foundation of
phone
truth,
screen.
rather than
The headline
assumptions.
read, "Progress
Elon
wasn't
Musk's
perfect,
daughter
but it
rejects
was
his name.
real."
In
And in the
shocking
end,
court
real
filing
was what they
he
both
clicked on the
needed
article.
most. There was a photo of
2
Trinity
years after the
outside
courthouse
declaration,
looking
Trinity
young
found
and
herself in a
determined.
place she
The
hadn't
same
expected.
face he saw in
Back
old family
in that
photos,
same courthouse,
but older now.
But this time,
sadder.
she wasn't there to
His
change
assistant
her name.
knocked on the door.
She was there,
Sir,
to support her
the
father.
press is
as he
calling
testified
for a
in a
statement.
groundbreaking case about
Not now,
workplace accommodations
Elon said,
for
without looking
neurological
up.
conditions. He read the article 3
Walking
times.
up those familiar steps.
Each time,
Trinity remembered
the words
the scared
hit him like a punch to the
19-year-old who
stomach.
had walked out of this building
His daughter
with
had legally
a new
erased
name
him
and a
from her
broken heart.
identity.
Now,
She had told
at
the
21,
world that she wanted
she felt
nothing to do with him.
fundamentally different.
Elon
Stronger,
closed his eyes,
clearer,
and leaned back
and
in his chair.
paradoxically,
When had
more
things
connected
gone
to
so
her
wrong?
family
Than she'd
when
been
had the
in
gap
years.
between them become so
You don't
wide
have to be
that
here.
she felt this
Elon
was her
said,
only option?
as they reached the courthouse doors.
He remembered.
Trinity,
This is about
as a little
employment,
girl, helping
law,
him build
dry
model
stuff.
rockets in the
Dad,
garage. Trinity
she had
said,
been so
giving him a look.
curious, so
You're
excited
testifying about how your
everything he
condition
was
affects
doing.
your work relationships.
Daddy, that's
when
huge.
can we go to space?
Of course I'm here.
She would ask. They
Her
had
eyes
developed this
full
rhythm.
of wonder.
Him offering
Now,
her out.
she didn't
her
even
choosing
want to
show
share
up
his
anyway.
last name.
It felt balanced
His
in
phone
a way
rang.
their relationship
It was his mother,
had never
calling
been from
before.
South Africa. In the courtroom,
Elon,
Trinity
what happened?
watched her father explain
May
Capgras
Musk's voice
syndrome
was
to the
filled
judge
with
and
concern.
jury. He spoke
I'm
clearly,
seeing news
without
about
shame,
Trinity.
about
Is
how the
this real?
condition had affected his
She
ability
changed her
to
name.
form emotional
Elon said
connections with
quietly.
employees.
She
About the
doesn't want to be my
accommodations he'd
daughter
developed
anymore.
to manage more effectively.
That can't be true.
For
You two
years,
were always so
Elon
close.
testified. I
Elon
thought I
laughed,
could, but there
powered
was
through
no
it.
humor in it. I thought if I just
Were
worked
we,
harder,
Mom?
if I set
When was the
clearer
last
metrics
time I
for
spent
success, a whole day
the
with her?
emotional disconnect wouldn't
When was the
matter.
last time
But
we had a
leadership
real
isn't just about
conversation?
strategy.
The
It's
line
about
was quiet
human
for a
connection.
moment. May Musk had watched
Trinity
her son
felt
build
a
his
swell of
companies
pride.
from nothing. 2 years ago,
She had seen him
he
work
couldn't have admitted
18-hour
that.
days,
The
7
case
days
was
a
setting
week.
precedent for how
She had
companies
seen how
handled
success had
neurological
changed him,
conditions that affected
how it had
interpersonal
consumed him.
relationships. Elon's
It's not too
testimony
late,
was critical.
she said finally.
Having someone of his stature
You can still
speak
fix
openly
this.
about his struggles, but Elon
Could
wasn't
change
so
how
sure.
the business world
Trinity
approached
had made
such
her
issues.
choice in the most public
During
way
a break,
possible. Trinity checked
she
her
hadn't
phone,
just
cut him
a
out of her
text
life
from Xavier.
quietly.
She
Watching
had done
Dad
it on
in
the
a
news,
courtroom, can't
with
believe how
cameras
much he's
rolling,
changed, making
you
sure
really
the
started
whole
something
world
with that
knew.
name change.
He
typed
opened
back,
Twitter.
We all
His
did.
fingers hovering
Sometimes
over
it takes something
the
dramatic
keyboard.
to force the truth
What
into
could
the
he
open.
possibly say?
After court,
How could
Elon
he explain
suggested
to
lunch at a
millions of
small
followers
cafe nearby.
that he had lost his
Over the
daughter?
past 2 years,
In
these
the
impromptu
end,
meals
he
had
said
become their
nothing.
thing.
No
He closed the
schedules,
app,
no
and
agendas,
put his phone face
just
down on
time
his
to
desk.
talk.
Back in Los Angeles,
I have
Trinity
something
sat
for you.
in her
Elon said,
childhood bedroom
pulling
at
an
her
envelope
grandmother's
from
house.
his jacket. The walls were
I
covered
was going
with
to
old
wait.
pictures, but after
Family
today,
vacations,
it feels
birthday
right.
parties,
Christmas
Trinity
mornings.
opened it to find
In
a legal
every
document.
photo, she was smiling.
Her heart sank.
In many of
thinking
them,
he was
her
trying to
father was
pressure
there
her to
too,
change, but
her name
always
back.
looking slightly out of place.
No,
Like he wasn't
Elon
sure
said
how
quickly,
he
seeing her
had ended up
expression.
in a family photo instead
Read
of a
it.
board meeting.
Her
It was a
phone
trust
hadn't stopped
document,
ringing.
not an
News
inheritance
outlets
or
wanted
financial
interviews.
arrangement, but a
Friends
joint
from high
research
school
fund
were texting,
specifically
asking
asking if the
studying
news was
emotional
real.
processing
Her
disorders.
younger brothers had called.
The fund would be
confused
administered
and
by
upset.
both of them.
focused
Why
on
didn't
helping
you tell
families
us?
navigate
Her
neurological
13-year-old
conditions
brother had
together.
asked.
We could
I
have helped.
want to call it the
But
Wilson Musk
Trinity
Foundation.
hadn't wanted help.
Elon said
This
quietly.
was something she needed to do
Your
alone.
name first.
She had
Because
spent
you taught
years
me
trying to
that
get her father's
understanding
attention,
changes everything.
trying to make him
Trinity
see her.
felt tears
Now,
forming.
finally,
Dad,
he was seeing
you
her.
don't have to
Maybe
say
not
yes.
in the way she had wanted.
It's just,
but at least he couldn't
I've been
ignore
thinking
her
about
anymore.
all the families going
She picked
through
up a
what we
framed
went
photo
through.
from her nightstand.
The misunderstandings,
It was from her
the
10th
pain,
birthday.
the
Her
assumptions.
father had surprised her by
Maybe
taking
we
the
can
whole
help them
family
skip
to see a
some of that.
SpaceX launch.
Trinity
She was wearing a special
smiled through her
VIP
tears.
badge and grinning
You
from
want
ear
to build
ear.
something
Her
together
dad was
again.
next to her, pointing up at the
Not
sky,
rockets this
explaining how the rocket
Something
worked.
more important.
That had been one of the
They
last
spent the
times
next
she
hour
remembered
planning.
feeling truly connected
Their
to him.
conversation flowing easily
After that,
between big picture
The launches
vision
had become work
and
trips,
practical details,
not family
At one
adventures.
point,
Trinity realized
birthdays
this was
had
exactly
become
what she'd
something
wanted
his
as a
assistant
child.
scheduled.
To work alongside
Christmas
her
had
father
become
on
an
something
obligation
meaningful.
he tried to fit.
But now it
between
was
board
happening as
meetings.
equals. Not
Trinity
as
set the
father and
photo
daughter
face down on her
desperately trying to
nightstand.
connect. She couldn't look at it anymore.
That evening,
tomorrow,
Trinity
she would
found
start her
herself
new
at the
life
family
as
dinner
Trinity
table for the
Wilson.
first time in 3
She
years.
would go to MIT under
All
her
of
new
Elon's
name.
children were there.
She would study
Various
aerospace
partners and
engineering,
friends
filling the huge
just
dining
like she
room.
had always planned.
It felt both foreign,
But she would do it
and familiar
without her father's help.
speech. Someone
Without his
called out when
guidance.
Elon stood to
Without
serve
his
dessert.
name.
No
It should have
speeches,
felt like
Elon
freedom.
said, but then
Instead,
paused, looking
It
at
felt
Trinity.
like the saddest thing
Actually,
in the world.
just one thing. As
I
night
want to
fell,
thank my daughter
both Trinity
Trinity
and Elon
for having
sat
the courage
in their separate
to force
homes,
our family
separated
face
by
hard
distance
truths
and hurt.
Sometimes
Neither
love
of
looks
them
like
knew
walking
that
away
the truth behind their
until
broken
people are
relationship
ready to do
was
better.
more complicated than either of them
Trinity
understood.
felt all
They
eyes
didn't
on her.
know about the medical condition
Thanks,
that had
Dad.
been affecting Elon
But
for
let's
years,
be real.
making
You
it nearly
did the hard
impossible
work.
for him to connect
got help?
emotionally with the people he
changed?
loved most.
You showed up.
All they knew
I just
was
made
that
it
something had
impossible for
broken
you to
between
ignore
them,
the problem anymore.
and neither of
Xavier
them
raised his
knew
glass.
how to fix it. To messy families,
The
figuring
shocking
it out
declaration
had been made.
to second chances.
The world now
added
knew
her
that
younger
Elon
sister.
Musk's daughter
To showing
had
up,
rejected
Elon
his
said,
name, looking at Trinity.
But the real story,
especially
the
when it's
heartbreaking
hard.
truth behind why,
As glasses
was
clinked
still
around the
hidden.
table, Trinity
That
felt a
truth would
profound
change
sense of
everything.
completion. But for now,
She was still
it
Trinity
remained
Wilson.
buried in medical
That
files
name had
and
become
private
intrinsic
struggles,
to her identity,
waiting for the right
representing
moment to surface
her independence
and transform
and her journey
two
toward
broken
self-knowledge
hearts into
But she
something
was
that
also,
might finally
someday,
and authentically
heal
her father's daughter.
Growing up as Elon
After
Musk's
dinner,
daughter,
as they
meant
worked
living
together to
in
build a
two
prototype
worlds.
layout,
There
for
was
the
the public
foundation's
world,
first
where her
outreach
father
program
was a superhero.
Trinity's
People stopped
phone
them on the
buzzed with a
street to take
notification.
pictures.
Someone had posted
Magazine
the original
covers
courthouse
called him
video.
the man
The
who
one
will
that
save
had
the
started
world.
everything. Kids at school
Look,
asked
she
if she got
showed
to
Elon.
ride in rockets.
We're
trending again. Then there was
Trinity.
the private world.
Wilson wins.
The real world. They watched the video
the world
together.
where Trinity learned
Her 19-year-old
that having a
self,
famous
angry
dad
and
didn't
hurt,
mean having
declaring
a present dad.
her rejection of the
In the
Musk
beginning,
name. Things were different.
Then they scrolled
Trinity
through
could
the
still
comments.
remember those early
Many
days.
were about their recent
back when
courthouse
Elon was just a
appearance,
guy trying to
about
make
the
his first
foundation
company
announcement,
work. About
their
how
house in
their
Palo
story
Alto
had helped
was
other
small
families
then.
start
No
difficult
mansion,
conversation,
no
security guards,
no
no
regrets,
assistants
Elon
scheduling
asked.
every minute of his day.
Trinity thought about it carefully.
No.
Chow
The
remembered
pain
Saturday
was
mornings in
real.
the garage.
Your condition
Her twin
explains
brother,
it,
Xavier,
but it doesn't
would
erase
help
it.
hold the cardboard
Changing my
steady,
name was
while
necessary
Elon cut it with
for
scissors.
both of us.
It
They were
forced us
building
to rebuild
rockets,
from scratch.
not real ones, and what
Just
models
we've
to
rebuilt.
show Trinity and
Trinity
Xavier
looked around
how
the
space
workshop
travel worked.
at the foundation
One day,
documents they'd
we'll
been
go there
working on,
together.
and
Elon
her
would
father's
say,
genuine smile.
pointing to the pictures of Mars
It's not
taped
what
to
I
the
thought I
garage
wanted
wall.
when I was little,
All of us,
but it's honest,
as a family.
and it's ours.
Trinity believed him.
6 months later,
Why wouldn't she?
Trinity stood before
Her dad could do
another
anything.
crowd,
But this time
On Sunday
at the Wilson
afternoons,
Musk Foundation's
Elon would
first
take
annual
them
conference
to the park.
Families
He'd push
affected
them
by
on the
neurological
swings while
conditions
explaining
filled
how
the
gravity
auditorium,
worked.
sharing
He'd help them build
stories
sand
and
strategies
strategies
that looked like space
My father and
stations.
I learned
He'd
that
lie on the
understanding
grass
doesn't
with
fix
them,
everything,
making up
Trinity
stories
addressed
about
the
aliens
audience
and
but
adventures.
it changes how you
Tell
approach
us
the
about the
broken
rocket
pieces.
ships again,
We
Daddy.
rebuilt our
Trinity
relationship
would
on
beg,
truth
and
instead
he
of
would.
assumptions.
On
Every time.
boundaries instead
Even
of
when he was
obligations.
tired from working
On
late, showing up even when his
instead of
phone kept buzzing.
expectations.
With emails, He would
From
tell
the
them
speakers
stories.
Section,
Trinity
she saw
still
Elon
had one
give
of
her a
those
subtle
cardboard rockets
thumbs
in
up.
her closet at her
Next to
grandmother's
him
house.
sat Dr.
It was
Chen,
falling apart now,
who had
held
joined
together
the
with yellow
Foundation's
tape.
advisory board,
But she couldn't
after
throw
her
it
keynote,
away. A young woman
it was from a
approached
time when
Trinity
her dad was
hesitantly.
just her dad,
Yours
not the world's most famous inventor.
Excuse me, Miss
Everything
Wilson?
changed
I
when
just-
PayPal
My
started
dad
taking
has
off.
capgras
Suddenly,
syndrome too. Elon, seeing
was
your
working
story,
16
how
hours
you
a
both
day.
worked through it.
Then
It gave me
18.
hope. Then 20.
Trinity took the woman's hands.
Just until we get to the next
hardest
milestone
part is accepting
he would
that
promise
love
Trinity's
can look
mother
different
than you
Justine.
expect. Just
But
until
real
we close
connection.
this deal. It's worth
Just until
fighting
we
for.
launch this product.
As conferences attendees
But there was
mingled,
always another
Trinity noticed
milestone.
Elon in conversation
Another
with several
deal.
parents,
Another
explaining
launch.
treatment options with the
Trinity
same
was
intensity
8
he
when she
once
started
reserved
keeping
only
track.
for rocket design.
She made a calendar.
He caught
put
her
a star
eye
on
and
days
smiled,
when her dad was
not
home for
the
dinner.
polished public.
In January,
Smile.
there were
But
12
something
stars.
genuine and
By
warm.
June, there were 3.
Later,
as they wrapped
Xavier
up the conference,
noticed too.
Elon found
He started
Trinity
having
in the
nightmares,
empty auditorium,
waking up in the middle
Thank
of the
you,
night,
he said
asking for their
simply.
dad.
for the
But
name
Elon
change,
was never
for the
home.
fight,
He was
for
at the
coming back,
office or in a
for
meeting,
helping me understand
or
that
on
being present
a plane to
is a
another
choice
meeting.
I have to make
Where's
every day.
Daddy? Xavier would ask.
Thank you for
tears
finally
running
making
down
that
his
choice.
cheeks.
Trinity replied.
He's working. Trinity
and
would
for
say.
teaching.
The same
Me
words
that
she heard their
sometimes
mom
the biggest
use
act
every
of
day.
love is walking
He's
away
working so we can
until
have nice
someone's
things.
ready to be better.
But Trinity didn't want
They
nice
stood in
things.
comfortable silence.
She wanted her dad to
watching
help
the
with her
setting sun
science
through the
project.
conference center windows.
She wanted him to teach her how to
One
ride
more
a bike.
thing.
Elon
She wanted
said
him to be
finally.
there when she
I
lost
never
her first
properly
tooth.
answered Xavier's
Instead,
message from years ago.
She got a new car
about
for her
why
mom.
he couldn't reach
A
me
bigger
during his
house.
panic attack. Expensive
I
toys
tried
that
to
sat
call him last
unopened
week
in their
during his
boxes
college stress
because
period.
playing alone
We
wasn't
talked
fun.
for 2 hours.
When Trinity turned
Trinity
10,
felt her
Elon
heart
promised
swell.
to take her to see a SpaceX
How did it
launch.
feel?
He had started
Real.
the rocket company by
Elon
then,
said simply.
and it was his
For
new
the first
obsession.
time, helping
She
my
had been
child
asking for
felt
months, and
natural.
finally, he said
like
yes.
something clicking into place.
The night before the trip,
As
Trinity
they left the
couldn't
building
sleep.
together,
she laid
Trinity
out her clothes,
realized their
packed
journey
her
had come
backpack
full
3
circle
times
in the most
and
unexpected
made a
way.
list of questions to ask
The
her
shocking
dad during the car
declaration
ride.
that had once
But when morning
divided
came,
them,
Elon
an
ultimately
assistant
created
called.
space for truth,
There was a problem with the
understanding,
rocket,
and a
He
stronger
needed
foundation.
to go to Texas immediately.
She was Trinity Wilson.
The trip was canceled.
Aerospace engineer,
Trinity's mom
foundation
found her
founder,
crying in her
and in the way that
bedroom.
mattered most,
He promised.
Elon Musk's
Trinity
daughter.
sobbed, not because
He
of
always
genetics
promises
or inheritance,
Justine
but
hugged
because
her
they had
daughter
chosen
tight.
to rebuild their
I know,
relationship.
sweetie. Daddy's
on terms
job
that
is
worked
very
for both
important.
of them.
Am
The truth
I
behind
important?
the name change
Trinity
had been
asked.
heartbreaking.
Her mother
A daughter
paused.
feeling invisible.
It was just a moment.
A father
but Trinity
trapped
noticed.
by
His own brain.
Of course you
both struggling to
are.
connect across
But Trinity
a neurological
wasn't sure
divide.
anymore.
But the turning
truth
point
had
came
also
when
been
Trinity was
transformative,
13,
leading
Xavier
to a
had been
relationship
struggling
more
with his
authentic
anxiety for
than
months,
either had imagined
but he refused
possible.
to talk to anyone
As they walked
except
to their
their dad.
cars under the
He said
Austin
only
sunset,
Elon would understand.
Trinity felt
because they were
profound
both
gratitude,
weird, and
not for the
different
pain
from
they'd
other
endured,
people, but for the
One
courage
night,
they'd
Xavier
both found
had
to
a panic
face it.
attack so bad
Understand
that
it,
Trinity found
and
him
move beyond
hyperventilating
it.
in the bathroom.
She
Some
sat
stories
with him,
end with
holding
dramatic
his hand,
reconciliation,
trying
or
to remember
painful
the breathing
separation.
exercises the school
Theirs
counselor
ended
had
with
taught
something
them.
rarer.
Call Dad.
Genuine understanding
Xavier
and the daily
gasped
choice
between
to keep
breaths.
showing up.
Please
Imperfectly,
call Dad.
but honestly.
Trinity picked
for
up
each
the
other.
house phone and dialed his cell.
In the end,
no
that
answer.
was what family really
She tried
meant.
again.
Not
No
perfect
answer.
connection.
Finally, she
persistent.
called his office.
Choice.
Not
SpaceX.
inherited
How
obligation.
can I help you?
But
A cheerful voice
intentional
answered.
love.
This is
And
Trinity,
for Trinity
Musk.
Wilson and her
I need to
father,
talk to my
Elon
dad.
Musk. It's an
That
emergency.
choice had made all the
I'm
difference.
sorry, sweetie. Your dad is in a meeting.
Where are you
with
listening
the
from
board.
today? But I
We'd
can take
love
a
to
message.
hear your thoughts in the
My
comments
brother
below.
is having a panic
If
attack.
this story
He needs
touched
to talk to
you,
Dad.
please give it a
The
like and
assistant's voice
subscribe to our
softened.
channel for
Oh,
more
honey,
heartfelt stories
that
like
sounds
this
serious.
one. And don't forget
Let me
to
try
share
to
this
get him
video
out of the
with your
meeting.
friends and family.
I'll have him call you back
Stories
in just
like
a few
these
minutes,
help us
okay?
understand that there's often
Trinity
more to
waited by the
someone's
phone
actions
for
than
3
meets the
hours.
eye.
Xavier
And spreading that
finally fell
awareness
asleep,
creates a kinder,
exhausted
more
from
compassionate
crying.
world for everyone.
Their mom came
Thanks
home
for
from
listening,
her writing class,
and we'll see you
and
in the
took
next
over.
video.